So, good evening, everyone. We start today's program with greetings of peace and prosperity. Please note that this event will be recorded and will be posted on our website. Let me begin by introducing myself and our team. I, Yuvish Bahati, will be your host. Arshad Khwaja, Mustafa Siddiq, and Hassan Shah will be moderating questions for today's event. Please simply use raise hand features as they will be called upon. Let me take this opportunity to thank all our UAF members who are present here today. Without your support, we would not be able to drive this initiative forward. For those that are joining for the first time, United American Foundation is a public advocacy group based in Harford County. We are a nonpartisan entity that strives to equip the citizens of our county with unity in amplifying political voice. Our vision is to strengthen residents with full awareness of political process to make an educated choice at the time of voting. For that purpose, we have started a series called Getting to Know Your Representative. I would also like to inform all of our members that we are still in need of few volunteers. For those that are interested, please contact Hassan. Today, we are honored to have Comptroller of Maryland, Peter Franchot, as our guest. Born in New Haven, Connecticut, Peter attended Phillips Academy in Andover, Mass., and graduated from Northeastern University School of Law with a Juris Doctor. He also served in the United States Army during Vietnam War. After his graduation, Peter worked as a legislative counsel for the Union of Concerned Scientists. He then served as a staff director for then Congressman Ed Markey. His time on Capitol Hill motivated him to make a difference in his own community. He was elected to Maryland House of Delegates representing Montgomery County from 1987 to 2007. He was elected as Comptroller of Maryland in 2006 and has subsequently been re-elected 3 times. He has led the Comptroller's office to #1 in the nation for capability in distribution of its tax refund with an average turnaround of 2.5 days. Now that's amazing. As Comptroller, Peter has been an independent voice and fiscal watchdog for the taxpayer of Maryland. He serves on 3-member Board of Public Works, which approves millions of dollars in state contract each year. He has worked tirelessly to keep Maryland competitive in the knowledge-based economy, assisting working families and protecting the state natural resources. Peter lives in Tacoma Park with his wife. They have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. In his free time, he enjoys watching soccer, playing with his grandkids, and gardening. Without any further delay, let's welcome our Comptroller, Peter Franchot.
Well, I couldn't be prouder to be your Comptroller, but also to join you. And I'm very interested in each of your views on everything that may be of importance to your membership. And that was a wonderful introduction. I did receive in the last election more votes than any other person in history for a statewide office. And for a tax collector, let's be honest, most people don't like paying taxes a lot. That's a pretty good record to have more votes than any other person in history running for a statewide office in Maryland. And I'm really proud to say that in communities like Harford County, which Democrats never win, I got 60,444 votes. Now, who's counting, right? But no, I count, because that to me is something that shows that I have a connection with the voters of Maryland, not just Democratic voters, but Republican voters and independent voters. And I think the reason for that is that they view me as a Democrat who's moderate on fiscal issues, liberal or compassionate on social issues, tight with the dollar, but results oriented. And whatever is good for the state of Maryland, that's what I'm in favor of, regardless of party. I tell people there's no such thing as a Democratic tax return or a Republican tax return. They're all tax returns. And thank you for mentioning, we processed 3.29 million tax returns last year. And we sent $3 billion in refunds back to people. And when you file electronically and get check the box for direct deposit, we got your money back in your pocket within 2.5 business days. And that's no other tax administration agency in the country comes close to that. So I salute my employees, but I think what people see me as is a Democrat, but not a robot, and someone who's intensely focused on results and customer service. So I think that stands me in good stead. I'll just comment on two things that we did this week. Number one, day before yesterday, I unilaterally took the opportunity, well, I unilaterally took the power to move the tax day from April 15th to July 15th for state taxes. Why did I do that? I wanted to do it to give vulnerable Marylanders and small businesses that have been hammered by the COVID pandemic, they've been hammered economically. I wanted to give them some immediate relief that was self-selecting, that was separate from all the fraud that's infected lots of the federal relief in other areas. And I wanted to do it quickly. I did not want to suggest that, look, if you have a certain tax issue, maybe when you file your taxes, you'll get a little bit of a deduction or we'll give you some credit to help you. No, these people that I'm talking about are about 450,000 Maryland families of low wage earners who right now have no job, no money to pay the rent, food, medicine. They are still left behind. A lot of us are doing okay. 2/3 of our population are just fine. And as you know, the stock market and other economic, the federal relief has done what it was supposed to do. It helps stabilize the economy. But for those low wage earners, they are up the creek right now. And we need to get something in their pockets immediately. So I decided to, and I'm the only comptroller's office in the country. Maryland's the only state in the country doing this. By moving the date from April 15th to July 15th, I'm in effect giving a 90-day interest-free, penalty-free loan to people who are only going to take advantage of it if they really need it. And that's what I find elegant about this. It's their money. It's in their pockets. They could send it to me or be forced to on April 15th as a tax payment. But instead, I'm saying, keep that money. Maybe it'll help you buy food for your family. Maybe it will help you keep your business open until you get into the summer months. July 15th is the new deadline. So please pass that along to people and say, particularly your members, that is well over $1 billion in immediate relief to people who desperately need it. And I'm proud of doing that. I'm not sure why the other states are not keeping up with me. The IRS still has the same date of April 15th. People should pay their federal taxes. If we owe you a refund, you should file promptly on January 24th when we start the tax season, and put in, once again, as I said, put in that you have, file electronically, but also check the box for direct deposit because we need that in order to get the money back to you quickly. So number one is a really elegant, immediate, flexible, fraud-free relief plan that helps people as we speak. That is the type of relief we have not had in the state of Maryland, or in the country. That relief, welcome as it is, and that relief has been enormously important to keeping the nation's economy going right. That relief was disconnected from the damage. In other words, we shut down restaurants in the hospitality sector, but it took us 8 months or 10 months to get them relief. And we lost 30,000 small businesses in Maryland. Some of them are coming back, but not the same ones, new ones. So what that disconnect between the time people were injured economically and then got the relief was too long. It was too long a period. So what I like about this tax situation is that it works immediately. They have money in their pockets that stay there for 90 days. Second thing we did was put out a big report on what we would spend the $6 billion surplus that Maryland has right now. This comes about partly through what I just did the last 2 years with this tax day, but also from the federal relief to the private sector, which was the Paycheck Protection Plan. That resulted in $6 billion identified by the Comptroller's office that is available to the legislature and the governor this year. It's a multi-year package. It may be bigger. I'm recommending that it be viewed as one-time only money and not just plugged into the operating budget. And I'm suggesting, were I governor, I would take $2 billion right off the top and put it in the rainy day fund. That's our state piggy bank, our state savings account, because we don't really know where the economy is ultimately headed in the next year or two. But take $2 billion, put it aside, that would make about $3 billion total in our rainy day fund. Then I would take the second $2 billion and put it right into one-time only, crucially needed mass transit projects. Baltimore has a big light rail project that needs to be done. Harford County probably has maybe rail, maybe bus, maybe some other commuter version that needs to be funded. But take $2 billion, put it into capital investments in mass transit. Once again, let's not commit future generations to paying higher taxes. Let's make sure it's one time only. Then I would take the remaining $2 billion, I would take half of that and immediately send a $2,000 survival check to the 430,000 low wage earning families that I just mentioned that are the beneficiaries of me moving the tax state. Many of them need that money. And that money that's about $900 million. That would immediately be spent in the state, have a multiplier effect, so it would help all businesses. But those people have been left out. They haven't gotten anything from the feds or from the state. So we need to give them a survival check. Then the remaining billion I would split between childcare, because we have a very antiquated system. We have about 8,000 childcare for-profit companies in the state, mostly minority owned or women owned. We've lost about 1,000 of them because because of the pandemic just ruined their business, and they're not big businesses, they're small businesses. But we need to modernize that system. I would spend $500 million on that, restoring it and modernizing it. And then I would spend $500 million on small businesses in the state. I'd go up and down the main street of Harford County municipalities, and I would write no questions asked checks to those businesses that the local community identifies as legitimate, good, hardworking businesses, but they're hanging on by a thread. Why not write them a $15,000 check, $10,000 check from the state of Maryland that says, thank you for lasting this long, just a little bit more till we get the COVID thing behind us. Then you'll be back in business, but don't close, don't permanently shutter. So that's the difference between me and, there's a lot of difference between me and the average politician. I'm not somebody who is partisan or responsive to people telling me what to do. I'm doing the right thing in my mind for what the state of Maryland deserves. And I'm way ahead in the polls. I'm ahead in all of the fundraising. I've run 4 times statewide. My opponents in the Democratic primary are terrific people, all of them, but none of them have a week's worth of experience like I have, frankly, 35 years of, but last 15 years as your comptroller. I think the proof is in the pudding. People like me. People realize that I'm the real deal as far as somebody who is trying to represent all the people. Let me stop there and just take questions. I know there are many different things you may want to ask about, and I'm available. I'm right.
Perfect. Arshad, do you want to start with the questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Peter, for joining tonight and giving us
Pleasure.
the opportunity to discuss this further with you. So let's stick to the topic of the $6 billion. One of the items that you've listed is the last item, which was some monies allocated for small businesses. Do you have any ideas of what the qualifications would be for that sort of disbursement?
Sure, give me a list. Really, the community knows these folks. Every county has got its own economic development division. They're wonderful people. Every municipality does. Every community's got advocates like your members, et cetera. Everybody knows who is legit and who isn't in a community. And many of these 30,000 businesses that closed had been in business for 40 or 50 I'm sorry, I guess somebody should be muted. Yeah, I'm competing with someone. But, many of the 30,000 that closed have been in business for 40 or 50, some of them 60 years. These are family-owned businesses, and they, because of the pandemic, lost their stability. And so they're gone forever, but we do not need to lose any more, particularly those that just need a little bit of, we know you're on, kind of betwixt and between, but we're going to give you something that's no questions asked. You don't have to fill out a huge application. We're going to go on the word of the local people of stature, I guess is how I would say it. The local civic leaders and economic development team can identify worthy recipients. And I'm not suggesting it's foolproof, but it's got to be quick. It can't be next month. It's got to be this month. We have to start doing that, or we have to start thinking about that, because once again, we'll get into this disconnect of, oh, we'll take your name. We know you're suffering. We know you don't have any real hope that you can last, but geesh, we'll get back to you with something. No, we have to take that money because it will result in a stronger, more prosperous economy at the end of the year if we're able to get out of our own way. And I don't mean to be critical. I have a very good relationship with Governor Hogan. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. And I have a good relationship with almost everybody in the state in one way or another. All I'm suggesting, and so I'm not critical of them for disconnecting the relief by months from the time it's needed. I'm just saying right now, we need these survival checks to these low wage earning families. I know it. I know who they are. Give me the okay, and I'll get the money in their pockets within 48 hours. And I also have faith in the local communities in Harford County. I can't tick them off, but I might take someone like Barry Glassman, who I have a lot of respect for, worked with very closely, served with him in the legislature. He's a Republican, but he's the county exec, and he knows his county. And I'll bet he could identify whatever would be Harford County's share. The key is big chunk of money, one time only. Some of it may not save a small business, but a lot of them will. Thank you for a good question.
Yeah, Peter. Just along the same lines, one of the items we talked about earlier was technology and innovation in Maryland. Do you have any ideas related to investments in technology, new technologies such as blockchain? Obviously, cryptocurrency is the new fad. Other technologies that we need as a society to move forward, and as a state and a county as well. So any ideas on investments in those areas?
Yeah, definitely. Want to come help me? You seem to know this stuff. I happen to believe fervently that the future prosperity of the state of Maryland relies on this interaction, this intersection of technology with government. Part of that is our proximity to Washington, D.C. and all the federal agencies there, but all the federal facilities that are here in Maryland. And it's that intersection between technology and government, which I think will be the foundation for the modernization of Maryland's economy. I could be wrong on that, but just take one subject, cybersecurity, which is highly technical. We use it in the Comptroller's office to protect the Maryland Treasury from being looted by fraudsters. You have algorithms and data processes that are just mind-boggling, complicated filters. And, the criminals are always one-upping us. It's like whack-a-mole. They come in one way and we block that, then they come in another way. But that's all through a partnership with the private sector, because we don't have that expertise in our agency. We have to rely upon the private sector, and it's a great partnership. It is not present in all Maryland state agencies. The Department of Labor has handled $14 billion in unemployment claims. $2 billion of the $14 billion has been sent directly to fraudsters out of state, out of the country, because the department did not have any adequate fraud detection system set up. So I don't mean to just pick out cybersecurity, but you mentioned blockchain. I think blockchain is less interesting to me as far as cryptocurrency, because I think I just have a little bit of an uneasy feeling that we're looking at what they had back in, I don't know what century it was, in Holland when they had the black tulips. Yeah, it's a little bit far out for me, the cryptocurrency. But I see blockchain technology as an unbelievable help to state agencies like the Department of Labor getting all 14 billion, not just 12 billion, but all 14 billion fraud-free to the proper recipients using the blockchain data methodology to incredibly expedite and accelerate the ability of government agencies to provide customer service. And that to me is a real, that's a real gold mine for the state to dig into, because it's, you know, I think it's happening right now. We just need to focus it a little bit on Maryland, and I look forward to that. But obviously, people like yourself and others who are in technology can, provide a lot of substance. But I come back to that basic view, which is intersection of technology with government. That's going to be a big part of our GDP down the road. We have about 444 billion in GDP statewide right now. I think that could double in the next 8 years. And part of that doubling could be blockchain. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Shifting topics, just one other question that I had. Harford County is going through redistricting right now, as other locations are as well. What are your thoughts on redistricting or gerrymandering in general? How are you going to approach it as governor?
I will approach it like a rational, functioning adult who says, look, we don't want politicians picking the representatives for the people through this kind of weird gerrymandering process that both parties have and both parties take advantage of. We want people selecting their representatives. Part of that is having geographically compact districts, be they federal districts or state legislative districts. They need to be geographically compact, easy for people to understand who represents them, who's running, etc. So I would, I'm not suggesting, I don't even know what's in Governor Hogan's maps, but if I were governor, we would end up with, number one, compact federal districts. Let the chips fall where they may. We would have single member legislative districts. No more of these 3-member districts where everybody gets a slate and when there's a vacancy, somebody else is picked to fill the vacancy. No, we're going to have single member districts for Democrats and Republicans. Once again, compact, community sensitive. People are going to know who represents them. And there's not going to be a lot of confusion and there's not going to be a lot of frustration. Right now, some states around the country or Republican states are acting outrageously. And in Maryland, the Democrats, unfortunately for me, are failing as far as having redistricting that people would have confidence in. So how do you do that? I think you have to do it from having a Democrat like myself rather than a Republican, because as soon as you get into that stuff, everybody says they're trying to take care of themselves. No, I'm just trying to take care of the state of Maryland. And as the head of the party, as well as being governor, I think I could have a tremendous impact on that whole process. And I'm not, once again, upset with any individual person. I'm just saying the process has been so captured by partisanship that the only way out of it is someone like me representing the majority party who says, guys, we don't need this. We need to do the right thing. And we need to let the chips fall where they may. And then the other thing I would do on day one is allow the 800,000 unenrolled people, these are mostly young adults, who don't like the Democrats because they don't see us as fiscally responsible. They don't like the Republicans because they see them as too harsh on immigration and other social issues. So they're independents, but we call them unenrolled in Maryland. We have 800,000 of them. They should be on day one allowed to vote in the Democratic primary or in the Republican primary, whichever one they wish. Not both, just one. One person, one vote. But that would be a big help to lowering the temperature, because then you would get prominent members, civic leaders, people of stature in the community who see that they can get into a Democratic or Republican race and, you know, realize that the voters are going to include these generally young adults who are more moderate than some of the longtime party members. Yeah, that would be good. That's my result. I mean, those would be my recommendations. But unlike, I don't need a statute or a law to open up the primary in the Democratic Party to independents. I believe as governor, as the head of the party, I have the authority to do that. Obviously, I need to work with my party and make them understand that it's not the end of the world, but it would be different, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. Mustafa, do you have any questions? And the baton to you.
I do. Thank you for joining us tonight, sir. Arshad actually stole two of my topics, blockchain and redistricting. So I'm actually one of those independent younger folks. So I'm 28, I'm a registered independent. On redistricting, so I chaired the commission for Harford County's Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. And unfortunately, that is now in the courts for the very same reasons that you just described the state, the state's process. I wanted to chat a little bit more about a third topic that I had, and that's universal basic income. So you mentioned that there are folks that are, suffering right now. What are your thoughts on universal basic income or a negative tax, based on income and the possible utility, for state government?
Well, that's a great question, because I've changed my views. When I first heard about the federal relief for COVID, I was skeptical. I thought that bringing, I think we're estimating now that we're brought in $70 billion to the public and private sectors in Maryland from the federal government in an 18-month period. That is just a god-awful big amount of money. It's like a fire hydrant of cash. And I can remember saying to folks, geez, I'm really uneasy about that, because I think we're going to see inflation, interest rate increases, et cetera. And we still may see some of that. But I have to hand it to the federal relief. It really saved our economy. I mean, we were really struggling 16, 17 months ago. So that's where a lot of the surplus came from, unexpected tax revenue growth. So I am not as conservative as I used to be on public spending when there is a problem like COVID. So I've changed my kind of worldview of that. Universal income, I've been somewhat skeptical about too. But I've also seen what the child care credits, not the credits, but the payments, and the relief is done for our lower wage earners. So I'm not sure about guaranteed income. I'd be happy to look at pieces of it, I guess. I'm actually more interested in having a 4-day work week. And that is, I don't want people to jump out of their seats and say, oh my God,
yes
is mine. I'm just thinking that, we all work so hard, not just the top 2/3, the bottom 1/3. At least us in the top 2/3 have homes and, we develop some wealth and we can pass it on to our kids, even though we work endlessly. Low wage earners, they work and work and work and have nothing at the end of the day. So I would like to see them get on a path to the middle class, maybe have, a state-backed, state guaranteed mortgage perhaps for some folks, because that will get them a much more affordable down payment and things like that. But it also struck me that, we work and work and work and we don't have enough leisure time. So, when I floated that once, one of my staff persons said, well, I can't get by if you only pay me for 4 days. And that's true. But, maybe there's something that the private sector can figure out where people get more leisure time. And, we have such a great country. We have such great people, like everybody on this call. So why not do something dramatic? Obviously, this requires the private sector to buy into something, but who introduced me to the idea was Dwight Eisenhower. Back in 1956, he and Richard Nixon, who was then the vice president of all people, they had as one of their major planks running for re-election that they were going to enact a 4-day work week. These are conservative Republicans. And, it was the same kind of momentum they were building on from the 1930s and 40s, where people got more wealth, where people got weekends off, where people got the 8-hour workday, that kind of thing. This kind of fit into that. But so I'm obviously, I'm not prepared to offer anything, but you asked the question about universal payments. How about giving our people enough time to enjoy all the hard work that they put into what it takes to survive in the free enterprise system? And I'm sorry if that's not directly on point, but it was a good question.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. That is actually really interesting, because I know some countries have tried it and have had a lot of success. I have one more question regarding, so you mentioned like the merging of the public and private sector for, tech innovation. I maybe in the last year learned of TEDCO, which is, I forget what it stands for. Here, I have the page of Maryland Technology Development Corporation. But even when I went to look it up for tonight's call, just to have it up, it was hard to find. And that, along with like what you mentioned, mortgages, there's a lot of like the Maryland Mortgage Program, a lot of state programs that are there that people just don't know about. What would be some strategies for the citizens of the state to be able to first learn about these state programs, so then they can take advantage of them?
Well, the concept of customer service has been lost on people. I have what I call the 3 R's for my 1,200 employees. They must respect the taxpayers, respond to the taxpayers, get results for the taxpayers. Part of that is letting them know, for example, unclaimed property. We have approximately $2 billion we're holding for people that have been turned over to us by many of the banking institutions and safe deposit boxes, insurance companies, things like that. It's by law, federal law, they have to turn it over to us. So we spend a lot of time, a lot of states just sit on that because the money's spent by the legislature, they don't want to repay it. I disagree with that. I want to get the money back to people or their descendants who are entitled to it. So we spend a lot of time advertising it. I think what you're kind of alluding to is not just the information is lacking. In so many government programs, the criteria are so strict and overthought that people have trouble fitting themselves into this kind of entity, the public sector, that they're looking into from the outside. So I would like to open it up and make it much more accessible. I think a lot of the insularity comes from the fact that everybody has been kind of electrified over the concept of fraud, waste, and abuse. So no politician wants to be associated with fraud or waste. So we set up all these guardrails on these programs that are very difficult to negotiate without an accountant or a lawyer. And they become impenetrable. And, I think we've overdone the concern about fraud. I think fraud can be eliminated largely through technology like blockchain and algorithms, as I mentioned. What we need to do is electrify our public to, as you say, not just be able to find TEDCO, but actually be able to find some capital. I mean, how come some people get it and other people don't? Well, a lot of it's just because of the insularity of these government agencies. So I'm not quite sure where I'm headed with that, other than to say, I would like to lower the guardrails, lower the concern that people have about fraud. Yes, we do not want people on the margins abusing programs, but for God's sakes, we need to have more people involved, for example, in the modern economy. We've got to have every young adult in your communities staying here in Maryland, starting businesses. As governor, I would propose that we recruit new young adults from around the country to come to Maryland, and the young adults who are here to stay in Maryland, by saying, if you stay here or you come here and you work for 5 years and pay taxes for 5 years, we'll forgive your student loan. That we're vetting that as far as the economics of it, but I think it's going to wash out as long as we don't pay for medical school tuition loans. But you know what I mean? We need to have incentives to bring folks to the state who are dynamic, have skill and knowledge about the modern economy, and most of all, have self-confidence that they can, capitalism is a fabulous system. It's got its flaws, but people that understand capitalism, understand capital, understand compound interest, I mean, boy, send us more of those, because that's what we need. And I think the state is very well positioned. It's a very wealthy state. It's just a state that is kind of, gets in its own way right now. And I think we really could take off. But good question. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. That's all I have, Wish.
Peter, one of the questions that member would like to know that how would you allocate additional funds for capital improvement project for schools?
Yes, I'm a big fan of capital expenditures on school. First of all, we have a lot of unused debt capacity in the state of Maryland. I, as the Comptroller, know this because we deliberately keep it artificially low, the debt level in the state, because we want to make sure that the rating agencies in New York give us a AAA bond rating. That obviously results in lower interest payments on the whole debt. But we've gotten out of whack in the last decade or so, and we're too tight on our debt capacity. We should give it more flexibility. And part of that money should be put into making that sure, number one, that every school in the state has heating and cooling. There were 50,000 kids a few years ago that in Baltimore City and Baltimore County were freezing in the winter. They had to wear parkas and wool hats in their classrooms because there was no heat. Same kids during the hot days, not summer because they don't have summer school, but there are a lot of hot days. They had to be sent home because there was no air conditioning. That is unacceptable. We need heating and cooling in every classroom in the state of Maryland. And I have spent quite a bit of time looking at that and believe that that would be well received, as well as getting rid of mold, getting rid of really old crumbling schools, getting rid of water fountains that you're not allowed to drink from because there's too much contaminants in it. So for those emergency areas, I can see spending more money right away. And once again, this $5 billion, $6 billion surplus is tailor-made for those kinds of one-time only interactions or payments. Now, some counties, like my county, Montgomery County, has had enough money to renovate schools. Others are building new schools like Prince George's County. Baltimore County's got a big project. And we're building new school, quite a few new schools in Baltimore City. But am I a big supporter of spending capital on educational facilities? Yes.
Thank you, Peter. You also have pledged that your administration will create a new cabinet level position focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. What led you to create this new cabinet level position?
Primarily just looking at how countries around the world that succeed do things. And many of them, unlike us, actually actively go out and bring in all the stakeholders for different issues. And out of that kind of diversity, they develop strong policies. Secondly, the legislature got mad at me years ago for supporting slot machines, gambling. I think it's a bad idea for the state. I don't think it's a good source of state revenue, but I lost that battle. But in so doing, I irritated some of the leadership. So they punished me. How did they punish me? They said, we're going to mandate that your 1,200 people be unionized. Okay. Well, why did, for its entire existence, the Comptroller's office has never been unionized because it has sensitive tax data in it, and the IRS looks very badly on state agencies that are unionized for, they claim, for security reasons. But anyway, my directors were all looking at me around the table and said, look, you did this. You got all involved in this slots battle and got everybody mad at you. And now look what they did. And we're going to have to suffer for it. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, we're going to have to, be collectively bargain. We're going to have to sit down with the unions. I said, guys, I'll plead guilty to, I'm the reason this is happening, but I bet you're going to be back telling me it's a good idea. 6 months later, they all came back and sat down. We had a meeting and they said, collective bargaining is one of the best things that ever happened, because we have the state employees that we all supervise sitting with us, telling us early on what the problems are and what we need to do to fix it and how the agency can be more productive. So I'm a big fan of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not interested in window dressing, having somebody sitting there with a title. That person is going to be with my lieutenant governor and me and my chief of staff once a week, telling me what every agency should be doing in order to build strength through diversity. Thank you. I didn't mean to shock you with that story about slot machines, but hey, government is not always rational.
Wes, you were muted earlier.
I was?
No, sorry.
Oh,
You were.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I was. People would say, that's great. Okay. Anyway, other questions?
Arshad, do you have another question?
No, I don't. Let's open it up to the floor to see if anyone else has any questions.
Yeah, hi, Peter, Mr. Franchot,
No,
Jennifer,
Peter,
everybody
Peter,
to
please.
the audience.
Yeah, Peter, please.
Peter, okay. Hi, I'm Hassan. I'm part of the team. I was actually overbooked. I was in another meeting and I just dropped in. First of all, I'm sure Udesh and Arshad and Mustafa have said already, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the program. I'll just say it from my end as well, too. I just had a question, and I know, this is kind of outside the box thinking, but can you share a little bit about, your interests, your hobbies, what's on your bucket list, things of that nature to get a, better, vibe. I know all the matters for the state will always play out and we'll see and we'll read and we'll understand. But, just sharing a little bit more, about you, about Peter, yourself, to us audience here.
Well, I think, frankly, most of my good stuff comes from my mother, because she lived till she was 94, 95, passed away. But I remember she looked up at me when she was really kind of fading. She said, Petey, don't be, that's what she called me, Petey, don't be scared that I'm passing on, because I'm just going to be on the other side of the door. And I believe that. I really think she is just on the other side of the door. So I want to do things that essentially I've done all my life, which is help people. And I've been able to do that successfully as an elected official. I'd like to finish my career as governor because that's really the pinnacle of everything. But for people who want to know where I'm coming from, I have a big smile. I have a big heart. I'm, you know, I've been married for 41 years to the same wonderful woman who makes me take the trash out. Thank you, Mr. Comptroller, take the trash out. Who definitely gives me something. Our 2 kids are very successful and have given us 3 grandkids. So I guess on my bucket list is someday to have the amount of time that I can reinvent myself as a grandfather and as a good grandfather. And so that's kind of the simple
Yeah.
goal I have. Yep.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, just, we're always looking to, touch base on a humanity level and, just kind of being interpersonal in a sense. But I really appreciate that, taking time
Yeah,
sharing that with
yeah.
us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
I don't normally answer personal stuff because, I don't really have time to read books. I mean, I'm like thinking my favorite book was something I read years ago, but it's just like, it's a abnormal life that I'm leading as leading as a politician. And particularly given the state of national politics, it's become a real chore. And people have lost confidence and
Right.
trust in their elected officials. And I'm lucky that in Maryland, I've got a certain part of the public that knows me and I think is going to be with me through thick or thin because, we'll see come election day, but I really think that I've got something that people appreciate right now on both sides of the political spectrum.
Very good.
Yep. So thank you for that question. I hate to get personal because, sometimes I can say something like my favorite singer is Bluppity Blop and people say, no, I hate that. So I'm going to just skip that if I can.
Does anyone who is on the call would like to ask a question as well? Or you can text us on the side as well. Here you go. I just got one more text here. One of our members would like to know that you have said that by end of the first term as a governor, you will provide access to high-speed broadband and 5G wireless technology to every citizen of our state. How do you plan to achieve that?
Yes, I'm going to, first of all, we're going to have a top to bottom meeting with all of the stakeholders. Verizon and Comcast have to really help. And the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is crucial. They've got to come in. So we've got to have our US senators enlisted. But we need a Marshall Plan. I mean, there are parts of Western Maryland and Eastern Shore where I can't even get phone service, much less high-speed digital connectivity. And that's going to hold us back because we asked the young people from around the country to come and locate in Maryland. They're not going to come here if we don't have one of the top high-speed internet programs in the country. So the problem here is that it's all been balkanized into local communities and the permits are handed out willy-nilly to different groups. So there's a kind of patchwork. But I happen to believe that as after World War II, when we had a Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, we can have a version of that in Maryland, where we really say, just like water, just like electricity, high-speed internet's going to be available to everybody in the urban areas where it isn't present right now, in some of the poorer communities, in the rural areas where because of geography and income also. The state is going to put its entire fiscal, statutory, regulatory authority behind this effort. And I'm going to have all the stakeholders. We talked about strength through diversity. We're going to have everybody at the table. And we're going to do something that aspirationally, will include the entire state. It may take us a while, it may take me a little bit after the first term. Good reason to run for reelection, but we're going to do it because without it, we're going to just slowly slip behind our competitors, even regionally, for example, Virginia. So all hands on deck, everybody involved, the state of Maryland completely in. And, you know, I find from a management perspective, if you get excellent people together and give them the resources, they can do almost anything. Thank you.
I completely agree, Peter. I mean, that would be definitely very beneficial for our state, and it would put us on the map in terms of technology-wise, and would be, of course, allow more citizens to move into our states. Does anybody else have any questions? Peter, first of all, we would all like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for answering our questions. I'm sure many of our members who were not here on the call, they will watch this recording on our website as well, and they'll reach out to you or Jennifer for any questions. But we, once again, thank you for taking time and look forward to work with you, and good luck on your campaign.
Could I just thank you for the United American Foundation?
Sure.
Thank you for being part of our great country. The one thing I will never tolerate, I have zero tolerance for as governor, is any kind of discrimination or hatred against anybody. I am not going to stand for that. So I want to make sure everybody realizes that we're going to be a state where first and foremost, people are going to be civil to each other. And we're going to have a benchmark beneath which we will never slip, which is treating everybody fairly, evenly, levelly, and no more discrimination, no more hatred is tolerated. And I see around the edges a lot of fraying fabric right now, a lot of kind of people get into a dispute out on the highway and they pull a gun on somebody. We're not going to have any of that. This is not going to be the Wild West. And I'm committed. I'm not even sure why I'm saying it to you guys particularly. I'm just moved by the anxiety that a lot of people feel. And I'm going to make the state not only strong and prosperous, but safe. It's going to be. And I have ideas for that. I don't think we have time right now to go into it. But I think it's manifested in I say it around the state, no public safety, no economy. Zero tolerance for police misconduct. I have no, I was in the Army, so I have no tolerance for professional people misbehaving. But I also have zero tolerance for violence against people, even if it's verbal. I know that I'm probably getting into constitutional problems here, but I don't even support verbal attacks on people. And I can't emphasize enough the need to return to civility and treating everybody the same. And I think that's part of your goal. And count me in.
I'm really happy to hear that you being the leader. Most of us are either immigrants or son of immigrants. We chose this state for a reason, and to have a leader like you who have zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination or hate or violence means a lot to all of us. We really appreciate that, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for the evening. Jennifer, will you make sure you publish all your contact info, please?
Sure.
And let's just stay in touch. You all have my cell phone.
Perfect.
Feel free to text me or voicemail me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and I'm going to stop recording now and end the meeting. Thank you and good night.